In Sweden, less than 1% of all transactions are now made with physical cash. 1%. In a country of 10 million people, coins and banknotes have become so rare that many Swedish banks no longer accept them at all. And Sweden is not some outlier. It is just the country that got there first. Welcome to the disappearing act nobody saw coming. You probably know that cash is declining. You have noticed it yourself at the coffee shop, the parking garage, the farmer's market. Places that used to be cash only are now card only. But the speed at which this is happening is something almost no economist predicted. The forces driving it go far deeper than convenience. And there is one reason cash is vanishing that almost nobody in mainstream media is talking about, because it implicates governments, banks, and central authorities in ways that make people very uncomfortable. We are going to get to all of it. Let us start with where cash comes from, not the mint, but the concept. For most of human history, people traded goods directly. Barter was inefficient, so societies developed tokens of exchange, shells, metal coins, eventually paper notes backed by gold. The first paper currency appeared in China during the Tang dynasty around 600 AD. It was called flying money because it could travel faster than metal. Merchants loved it. Governments loved it more. Paper currency let rulers control the money supply in ways that gold and silver simply did not allow. For centuries, physical cash was the only option. Then came checks, then credit cards in the 1950s, then debit cards, then online banking. Each innovation was supposed to reduce cash. But cash proved stubborn. Even as late as 2010, cash still accounted for roughly 40% of consumer transactions in most developed economies. The financial system had built an entire parallel digital infrastructure, and yet people still pulled crumpled bills out of their wallets every single day. So what changed? Why is cash collapsing now, faster than at any point in history? The first major accelerant was the smartphone. When Apple launched Apple Pay in 2014 and Google followed with its own version, something fundamental shifted. Contactless payment was no longer just for people with special cards. Your phone, the device already glued to your hand, became your wallet. By 2019, mobile payments were processing over $2 trillion annually worldwide. By 2023, that number had more than doubled to nearly $5 trillion. The friction of paying with cash, which most people had never consciously noticed before, suddenly became obvious the moment you could just tap a screen. The second accelerant was the pandemic. This is where the collapse went from gradual to dramatic. In 2020, businesses around the world stopped accepting cash overnight. Not because of any government order, but because of fear. Nobody wanted to touch physical objects that might carry the virus. Central banks in multiple countries actually warned people about handling banknotes. The United Kingdom saw a 35% drop in cash transactions in just the first 3 months of 2020. Australia saw similar numbers. In the United States, the Federal Reserve reported that ATM withdrawals fell by nearly 50% at the peak of lockdowns. Those behaviors did not fully reverse when the pandemic ended. People had been forced to learn new habits, and new habits stick. But here is what nobody talks about. Governments were not just passively watching this transition happen. In many cases, they were actively encouraging it. Why? Because cash is anonymous. When you pay with cash, there is no record. No data trail. No way for a government to track whether the transaction happened, whether taxes were paid, whether money was moved across borders. The informal economy, the underground economy, runs almost entirely on cash. In Italy, tax evasion costs the government an estimated €100 billion per year. In India, the black market economy was once estimated at roughly 20% of total GDP. In the United States, the IRS estimates it misses over $600 billion annually due to unreported income, most of which flows through cash transactions. When cash disappears, that problem largely disappears with it. Every digital transaction leaves a trace. Every trace is taxable. This is not a conspiracy theory. It is publicly stated policy in multiple countries. The European Union has been pushing for caps on cash payments since 2021, with proposals to limit cash transactions to €10,000 across the entire bloc. Now let us talk about the technology side, because the infrastructure replacing cash is not just more convenient, it is genuinely more sophisticated than most people realize. Real-time payment systems have transformed the back end of finance. India launched UPI, the Unified Payments Interface, in 2016. By 2023, it was processing over 10 billion transactions per month. 10 billion. In a single month. That is more than Visa and MasterCard combined processed globally just a decade ago. Brazil's Pix system, launched in 2020, hit 100 million users faster than any financial product in that country's history. These systems are instant, free or nearly free, and accessible to anyone with a basic smartphone. They do not just compete with cash. They obliterate the practical reasons cash ever existed. And then there are central bank digital currencies, or CBDCs. This is where the story gets genuinely fascinating and unsettling, depending on your perspective. Over 130 countries are currently exploring or actively developing digital versions of their national currencies. China has already rolled out the digital yuan to hundreds of millions of users. The Bahamas has the sand dollar. Nigeria has the e-naira. The European Central Bank is in advanced testing for a digital euro. A CBDC is not cryptocurrency. It is not decentralized. It is the opposite, it is cash reimagined as a government-controlled digital token. Every unit is trackable. Every transaction is logged. Some CBDC designs include programmable money, meaning the government could theoretically set expiration dates on funds, restrict what categories of goods the money can be spent on, or freeze accounts without touching a physical bank at all. This is not speculation. The Bank for International Settlements, which is essentially the central bank for central banks, published a report in 2021 openly discussing programmable functionality as a feature, not a bug. Supporters say it would allow for highly targeted economic stimulus. Critics say it is the most powerful financial surveillance tool ever created. Here is the deeper tension nobody wants to name directly. The death of cash is not just a story about convenience or technology. It is a story about power. Physical cash is one of the last truly private financial instruments available to ordinary people. It requires no account, no identity verification, no approval from any institution. You can hand someone a $20 bill and nobody anywhere knows it happened. Once that ability disappears, and at current trends, it will largely disappear within the next 15 to 20 years in most developed economies, a fundamental form of financial privacy goes with it. This matters even for people who have nothing to hide. Privacy is not only about secrecy. It is about autonomy. The ability to make decisions without those decisions being monitored, scored, or flagged is a foundational element of individual freedom. Surveys across Europe and North America consistently show that between 60 and 70% of adults say they value the option to use cash, even if they rarely do. There is a difference between choosing not to use cash and having no choice at all. At the same time, the benefits of a cashless society are real and not trivial. Financial inclusion for the unbanked has expanded dramatically in countries with strong mobile payment infrastructure. Transaction costs for businesses have dropped. Tax collection has improved, funding public services. Counterfeit currency, which costs governments billions annually, becomes essentially impossible in a digital-only system. Street crime targeting cash has declined in the most cashless cities in the world. These are not small things. The honest analysis is this: cash is disappearing because the forces aligned against it, technology, government interest, corporate efficiency, and consumer habit, are simply stronger than the forces defending it. No single decision ended cash. Thousands of small decisions, made by individuals, companies, and governments across decades, are adding up to one enormous structural shift. Before you go, if you learned something valuable today, hit that like button right now. Subscribe to Flash Trend for a brand new video every single day. We will see you in the next one.